Wait! It's dangerous! The words slice through the grand ballroom like glass shattering. For a moment the music stumbles, the laughter falters, and the crowd of glittering guests turns their heads. Damien Veyron, the untouchable billionaire, stands rigid in the glow of crystal chandeliers, his jaw tight, his icy blue eyes burning into the trembling maid who dared raise her voice. Amara Lewis. She clutches her tray so hard her knuckles whiten. The wine glasses tremble, threatening to spill, but her voice, soft, quivering, terrified, does not waver. Her chest rises and falls as though she has just sprinted through fire. Damien's lips curl into a sneer. What did you say? His voice is sharp enough to draw blood. Guests shift uneasily. No one interrupts Damien Veyron. Not his board members, not his rivals, not even his supposed friends. Amara's heart pounds, but her wide brown eyes stay fixed on him. She has just seen something no one else noticed, the glint of metal near Damien's side, a shadow moving too close behind him. But she cannot form the words quickly enough. Fear locks her tongue. Damien steps forward, his shoes echoing on marble, his tall figure cutting across the room like a blade. Answer me, he snaps, his voice rising. The room holds its breath. And then, before Amara can explain, the shadow slips away into the crowd, leaving her exposed and trembling under Damien's fury. The night is heavy with unsaid words. Amara retreats to the servants' quarters, her thin uniform clinging to her from nervous sweat. Her hands shake as she folds cloth napkins, though she has already folded the pile twice. She cannot stop hearing his voice, cold and humiliating. Answer me. She had tried. But the sight of danger froze her, and now she wonders if she imagined it at all. Damien, meanwhile, paces his study upstairs. He loosens his tie, downs whiskey, and stares at H's reflection in the window. He cannot shake the look in her eyes, those pleading, innocent eyes. For the first time in years, someone had shouted to save him, not to impress him, not to mock him, to save him. But Damien is a man who doesn't believe in gratitude. He believes in control, and Amara had broken the rules. The next morning, she is summoned. She stands before him in the grand office, mahogany desk, walls lined with ruthless paintings, the air heavy with intimidation. Damien leans back in his chair, his gaze sharp, his voice clipped. You humiliated me in front of my guests, he says. You shouted like some wild... He stops himself, jaw clenching. He won't finish the word forming on his tongue. Amara swallows, her voice small but steady. I thought... Someone was trying to hurt you, sir. Damien studies her. He wants to laugh, to dismiss her words as paranoia. But the memory of that flicker, metal glinting near his side, gnaws at him. Still, he hardens his tone. Next time, keep your thoughts to yourself. I don't pay you to think. I pay you to serve. The words strike her like a whip, but she does not flinch. She bows her head, whispers, Yes, sir, and leaves with quiet dignity. The house continues to breathe in silence and cruelty. Damien's voice carries down halls, cutting servants down with sarcasm or impatience. He is always perfectly dressed, his shoulders squared, his coldness untouchable. But when he catches sight of Amara, dusting bookshelves, arranging flowers, carrying trays, he feels an unfamiliar twist in his chest. She is different. Her innocence unsettles him. She bows when he enters, but she never scrambles like the others. Her hands are delicate, her eyes soft, her presence almost grounding. And yet, she defied him. Amara, meanwhile, carries her own storms quietly. She remembers her mother's face, weary but proud, telling her before she leaves, "Gift for this job. Keep your head down, baby. Dignity don't mean loudness, it means you survive." Those words ring inside her whenever Damien's voice pierces her. She survives. For her family. For herself. But the image of that blade lingers. She knows what she saw. And when the next gala arrives, when Damien once again parades his wealth before the world, she cannot shake the chill crawling up her spine. She watches from the corner of the ballroom, tray in hand, eyes scanning shadows. The danger has not passed. It waits. And she knows. When it comes again, she will not stay silent. The music is louder this time, a full orchestra swelling beneath chandeliers. Crystal glasses clink, laughter flows like champagne, and Damien Veyron stands at the center of it all, his tailored suit gleaming midnight black. His posture is perfect, shoulders squared, chin raised, the untouchable billionaire. But Amara can't see him without also seeing the shadow that slipped away last time. Her tray feels heavier than it should, her fingers numb around polished silver. She keeps close to the walls, scanning every face in the crowd. It's not her place. She knows it. She's just the maid. But her heart refuses to be quiet. Damien's voice cuts through the music as he raises a glass to toast. To another year of triumph, to the empire we've built. His words drip arrogance, yet his eyes, for just a flicker, dart toward the corner where Amara stands. She lowers her gaze instantly, cheeks burning. And that's when it happens. A guest, an older man with sharp cheekbones, salt and pepper hair, and a wolfish smile, slips close to Damien's side. His hand brushes Damien's arm with the ease of familiarity, but his other hand lingers too long beneath his jacket. Amara's breath catches. There, the gleam of steel. Wait. It's dangerous. Her voice bursts from her chest before her mind can stop it. The room freezes again, shocked murmurs spilling like ripples across a pond. Damien's head whips toward her, eyes narrowing with fury. He sees nothing, just a servo. Want disrupting him, humiliating him in front of investors, worth billions. The older man withdraws smoothly, his smile never faltering, and slips back into the crowd. The blade vanishes with him. To everyone else it looks like nothing happened. But Damien only sees Amara. Later, when the guests are gone and the mansion echoes with silence, Amara is dragged before him. He slams his glass down on the desk, amber liquid splashing. Do you enjoy embarrassing me, Amara? His voice is sharp, cold, dripping with venom. Her throat tightens, but she forces the words out. I saw him, sir. He had something. He wanted to hurt you. Ridiculous, Damien snaps, though his hand trembles as he pours another drink. Do you think a man like me doesn't know how to spot danger? You think I need you to protect me? Her eyes glisten, but she doesn't back down. I know what I saw. The defiance is small, quiet, but it strikes him harder than a shout. He steps closer, towering over her. Your job is to clean floors, not invent stories. You're lucky I don't fire you tonight. The words crush her, but she bows her head. Yes, sir. And yet, Damien's anger doesn't feel as steady as usual. Something about her conviction rattles him. Why would she risk his wrath, twice, for a lie? The next day, humiliation follows Amara like a shadow. Other maids whisper that she's foolish, reckless, lucky not to be thrown out. The butler warns her to keep quiet if she values her position. Amara folds sheets in silence, her eyes stinging. But when she is alone, she whispers to herself, I'm not wrong. I saw it. I know I did. Meanwhile, Damien can't focus. He sits in his office, scrolling through security footage, searching for something, anything, that will prove Amara wrong. But the cameras caught nothing. Only smiles, clinking glasses, polished shoes on marble. He tells himself she's delusional. He tells himself she's beneath him, a servant out of place. Yet at night, when sleep evades him, he remembers the fear in her voice, the desperation. Wait, it's dangerous. And he remembers the glint of steel. The tension grows unbearable when word arrives that the older man, Victor Armand, a ruthless competitor, has been spotted lingering near Damien's estate. Security shrugs it off. Business rivals watch each other. It's normal. But for Amara, the unease deepens into dread. She polishes silver until her reflection blurs, her hands trembling. She wants to tell Damien again, but the memory of his fury holds her tongue. Still, the mansion feels heavier now, like the walls themselves are waiting. And Damien, though he refuses to admit it, feels it too. He begins noticing every flicker in the shadows, every whisper behind his back, every time Amara's wide eyes catch his across the room. It unsettles him, because for the first time in years he wonders if someone might actually care whether he lives or dies. And that thought terrifies him more than any blade. Damien's temper is a storm, no servant wants to be caught in. By the third night after the gala, his voice echoes down the marble halls, sharp and merciless. A cook trembles as he hurls a plate against the wall for being too cold, the shards scattering like snow. Footmen exchange nervous glances. No one dares breathe too loudly. But Amara hears something beneath the thunder, not just anger, fear. She notices how his hands linger at his cuffs as though checking for blood, how his eyes dart toward every doorway before he enters, how he drinks more now, faster, as if swallowing something he can't name. The humiliation, however, falls squarely on her. At breakfast, with half the staff lined against the wall, Damien singles her out. "Tell me, Amara," he says, his voice deceptively calm as he spreads marmalade over toast. "Do you still believe there was a man with a knife at my gala?" Her throat tightens. Dozens of eyes burn into her. The room feels suffocating, but she nods once. "Yes, sir." The silence is brutal. Damien smirks. And yet not a single guest saw. Not a single camera caught it. Fascinating, isn't it? Perhaps you've mistaken your job title, maid or prophet? His laugh is low, cruel. The staff chuckle nervously, afraid not to. Heat floods Amara's cheeks. She bows her head, her tray trembling in her hands. But even through the sting of humiliation, she whispers, "I only wanted to keep you safe." Her voice is nearly drowned by Damien's dismissive wave. "Safe? From shadows? Don't flatter yourself. You are nothing but background here. Remember that." The words pierce her like daggers. She leaves the room with her back straight, but tears spill the moment she's alone in the corridor. Yet humiliation does not silence her spirit. That night, Amara slips out to the servants' balcony. The cold air bites her skin, the stars dim against the city lights. She hugs her arms around herself, whispering a prayer her mother used to say, "Lord, keep us safe in places that don't see us." She doesn't notice Damien watching from the shadows of his study window above. For the first time, he feels something sharp twist inside him, guilt. He remembers her words, "I only wanted to keep you safe." He should feel triumphant for putting her in her place. Instead, he feels small. The next evening, the mansion hosts another dinner, smaller but no less opulent. Guests in silk gowns and sharp suits murmur over candles and wine. Damien plays the charming host, his smile cold but convincing. Amara moves silently through the room, refilling glasses, her eyes low. But her ears catch everything. Two men near the back whisper too intently. She hears one mutter Victor Armand's name. Her stomach knots. As she sets down a dish, her gaze flicks upward, and she freezes. Across the room, Victor himself stands at the edge of the crowd. His smile snake-like, his eyes locked on Damien. Her heart slams against her ribs. She sees it again, his hand dipping into his jacket. This time, she doesn't shout. She moves. The tray clatters as she rushes forward, shoving past startled guests. "Mr. Veyron?" Damien turns, furious, just as Victor's hand flashes. Steel gleams. Gasps erupt. Chairs scrape. The room tilts into chaos. Amara lunges, grabbing Damien's arm, pulling him back just as the blade slashes the air where his ribs had been. Pain explodes in her shoulder, the knife finding her instead. Her cry is soft, strangled, as blood blooms against her pale uniform. The guests scream. Security tackles Victor. The knife clatters to the floor. Damien stares in shock, his perfect composure shattered. And Amara crumples to the ground, her wide brown eyes glassy with pain, but still locked on him. "Wait, it's dangerous," she whispers again, before darkness swallows her. For the first time in his adult life, Damien Veyron falls to his knees in front of a crowd. He presses his trembling hands against Amara's wound, his expensive suit soaking red. "Stay with me," he begs, his voice breaking. "God, please, don't leave me." The guests stare in stunned silence. The cruel billionaire, who never bowed to anyone, is crumbling before them all. And in that moment, the empire he built on fear begins to crack. Blood stains Damien's hands, warm and slick, seeping through the fine weave of his suit. He doesn't care. His voice, always cold, sharp, untouchable, breaks into something raw and human. "Amara, stay with me. Please. Just stay." Her eyelids flutter, her breaths shallow and ragged. The chandelier's glow blurs in her vision, and for a heartbeat, Damien looks less like a billionaire and more like a terrified boy who has never learned how to beg. The ballroom is chaos. Guests shriek, some fleeing, others frozen. Phones flashing as security pins Victor Armand to the ground. The rival sneers even as he's dragged away. "She got in the way." That should have been you. Damien's jaw tightens, rage slicing through his panic, but Amara's faint moan pulls him back. Nothing else matters. The ambulance sirens wail against the night, but Damien refuses to release her hand. He sits in the back of the vehicle, his arm braced around her, whispering words he didn't know he still carried. I'm sorry, I was wrong, just hold on. Please, Amara, don't give up. Her lashes tremble, her lips parting. I tried to tell you, she whispers, each word like broken glass. Damien feels something splinter inside. I know, you were right, I was blind and I hurt you, but not anymore. I swear to you, not anymore. Her fingers twitch in his grasp before her strength fades, and the monitor beside them beeps steadily, fragile as a heartbeat of hope. At the hospital, sterile white light bathes the waiting room. Damien stands stiff, his clothes ruined, his hands still stained red. Security officers press him for statements, but he barely hears them. His world has shrunk to the closed doors where surgeons fight to save her. For the first time, Damien Veyron cannot buy, command, or intimidate his way out. For the first time, he is powerless. And he weeps. The tears come quietly, sliding down his rigid face, his shoulders trembling as he buries his head in his palms. Staff and strangers passing through the hospital pause, shocked. The man known for cruelty, for perfection, for ice, reduced to nothing but grief. Hours crawl like years until at last, a doctor steps out. She's stable. The blade missed her lung by millimeters. She'll need rest, but she will recover. The relief crashes over Damien so hard he nearly collapses. His knees give way, his hand covering his mouth as a sob racks his chest. He doesn't care who sees, for once pride means nothing. When Amara wakes, it is to the soft beeping of monitors and the unfamiliar sight of Damien's sallow, umpet in a chair beside her bed. His tie is gone, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes shadowed by exhaustion. Damien? Her voice is a whisper. His head lifts instantly, eyes flooding with relief. Amara, thank God, you're awake. She blinks at him, dazed. Why are you here? He swallows hard. The words come slowly, each one heavier than the last. Because I owe you everything. Because you saved my life when I didn't deserve it. And because I was cruel to you. Unforgivably cruel. Her gaze softens, though confusion lingers. I only did what anyone would have. No, Damien says firmly, leaning forward. No one else would have risked themselves for me. They look at me and see power. You looked at me and saw a man in danger. You cared. His voice breaks. And I mocked you for it. Amara's eyes sting. She sees the cracks in him now, veins of sorrow, loneliness, regret. She sees not the marble figure who loomed over her, but a man stripped bare, trembling in his own shame. Damien, she whispers, I forgive you. The words crush him and lift him all at once. He bows his head, shoulders shaking, his hand reaching for hers. I don't deserve it, he murmurs, but I will spend the rest of my life proving I can. The next day the story spreads like wildfire. News outlets blast headlines. Billionaire saved by Maid. Photos surface of Damien on his knees, bloodied and desperate. The world that once feared and envied him, now sees him humbled, human. Investors call. Some are scandalized, others moved. But Damien doesn't care about business for once. His focus remains on Amara, the young woman who shattered his armor. In the mansion, whispers turn into stunned respect. Staff who once pitied Amara now speak her name with awe. The underdog has not only survived humiliation, she has become the reason the Empire's cruel master has begun to change. The climax burns into memory. Damien Veyron, standing before his household, before lingering guests and workers, his voice unsteady but resolute. I have built a world of fear, he admits, his cold mask gone. I believed cruelty made me strong. But last night, a girl I demeaned, dismissed, and humiliated chose to risk her life for mine. She showed me what real strength is. Gasps ripple through the crowd as he turns, his eyes on Amara, pale but upright with the support of a nurse. I am ashamed, Damien continues, his voice breaking, and I am grateful, more than words can ever say. Forgive me, Amara. Not as a servant, not as someone beneath me. Forgive me as the person who saved my soul. Silence falls. Then, slowly, applause. Some weep, some bow their heads. And Amara, tears shining on her cheeks, nods softly. The moment sears itself into history. The proud billionaire stripped of pride, and the maid whose quiet courage changed everything. The applause lingers in the halls long after the crowd disperses, echoing like waves against marble. But in the days that follow, the ripple effect begins. Word spreads beyond the mansion's walls. Newspapers splash Amara's photo beside Damien's, her in her simple maid's uniform, pale from blood loss, him kneeling at her side with anguish carved into his face. The contrast stirs the public, a billionaire humbled by a maid's sacrifice. For the staff inside the mansion, the shift is immediate. Where once Amara endured snickers and dismissive glances, now there are nods of respect, even admiration. One of the cooks, who used to whisper that Amara was too naive, presses an extra roll into her hand during dinner. The butler, once stern, bows slightly when she passes. Yet Amara does not walk with pride. She still keeps her head low, her steps quiet. But Damien notices her posture has changed, not bowed from shame, but steadier, grounded. Damien himself is no longer the same. The man who used to bark orders now pauses before he speaks, as if weighing the weight of every word. He thanks staff. Awkwardly at first, his voice rough as though unused to gratitude. He apologizes when he catches himself snapping. Some servants don't know how to respond. They blink, startled, waiting for the cruelty to return. But the sharp edges remain softened. At one point, a gardener accidentally knocks over an expensive vase. The Damien of old would have exploded, humiliation burning the man alive with words. Instead, he exhales, kneels down, and begins helping gather the shards. The silence in the room is deafening. Slowly, the others bend to help. It is Amara, standing in the doorway with fresh linens in her arms, who catches his eye. Their gazes meet. No words pass, but something profound does, the recognition of change. Still, the outside world is not so forgiving. Investors demand answers. Your public breakdown makes us look weak, one spits during a board meeting. We cannot have the image of Veyron Holdings tied to a servant girl. Damien's jaw tightens. The old him would have lashed out. The new him, still learning how to bend without breaking, straightens his shoulders. That servant girl, he says evenly, took a knife that was meant for me. She has more courage than anyone in this room. The silence that follows is scalding. For the first time, Damien does not fear it. Amara hears whispers of these meetings from other staff, but she doesn't allow herself to believe them fully. She doesn't know what to make of Damien now, this man who humiliated her, then wept for her. She remembers the venom of his words, the sting of laughter at her expense. Forgiveness had come easily in the hospital, born of weakness and compassion. But forgiveness does not erase scars. Still, when she passes his study one evening, she hears him practicing words aloud to himself, stumbling as though they are foreign. Thank you. I was wrong. I'm sorry. She lingers outside the door, heart aching. He is trying. That too is new. The mansion hosts no galas for weeks. Instead, it hums quietly, a place of healing. Damien insists on visiting Amara daily, bringing her tea, sometimes clumsy flowers from the garden. His presence is awkward, almost boyish, stripped of arrogance. One evening, as the sky bruises purple outside her window, he sits by her bed, staring at his hands. You know, he says softly, I used to think emotions were weapons, that if I showed anything real, people would carve me open. So I built walls, and in doing so, I trapped myself inside them. Amara studies him. His blue eyes look tired, not from wealth, but from weight. You don't have to explain yourself to me, she says gently. Yes, I do, he replies, voice breaking. He looks at her then, really looks, as though seeing her not as a servant, but as the center of his unraveling. Because you stepped into danger for me when I had given you nothing but cruelty. Why? Why would you do that? Her gaze softens. Because no life is worth throwing away, not even yours. The words pierce him deeper than any blade Victor Armand could wield. He lowers his head, unable to stop the tears that blur his vision. The household changes, slowly but unmistakably. Staff who once feared Damien begin speaking up, their voices no longer trembling. He listens. Sometimes he snaps, out of habit, but he catches himself, apologizes, corrects. The man who built an empire on ice is thawing. And at the heart of it all is Amara. To the world, she is still the maid who saved the billionaire. But within the mansion, she has become something more, a quiet compass. The night before her return to full duties, Damien calls the staff together in the ballroom. He stands where chandeliers gleam, but this time without arrogance. His posture is upright, but his voice softer than ever before. "I owe each of you respect I did not give," he says. "I thought power meant fear, but Amara has shown me that real power is kindness, it is courage, it is humanity. From this day forward, no one in this house will be treated as less than, not by me, not by anyone." Murmurs ripple, some skeptical, others relieved. But when Damien turns to Amara, his gaze steady, the truth of his vow shines clear. She bows her head, humbled and overwhelmed. For the first time, she does not feel small. The morning light pours through the mansion's tall windows, golden and forgiving. For the first time, the air inside feels different. Not heavy, not sharp, but alive with something almost tender. Change. Damien Veyron stands in the grand hall, where for years his footsteps echoed like thunder and his orders fell like whips. Today, he stands not as a master, but as a man about to be seen. Staff gather in hushed clusters, maids clutching polished trays, cooks with flour still dusted on their sleeves, the butler rigid but watching keenly. And in the middle of them all sits Amara, her arm still bound in bandages, her face pale but calm. The moment feels fragile, like glass trembling on the edge of a table. Damien clears his throat, his usual command absent. His voice is unsteady, carrying no arrogance, only weight. "I need to speak plainly. I've built an empire on fear, and in doing so, I've hurt people who did not deserve it." His gaze scans the staff, then lands on Amara. Most of all, her. Amara's breath catches, but she does not look away. Damien steps closer, his tailored suit crisp but his posture humble. "I humiliated you, Amara. I mocked you, doubted you, belittled you in front of others. And yet, when my life was in danger, you were the only one who stood up. You bled for me when I had done nothing to earn your kindness." Gasps ripple among the staff. A billionaire apologizing to a maid? It feels unthinkable. Damien swallows hard, his blue eyes glassy. "I was wrong. I was cruel. And I am sorry." His voice cracks on the last word, raw and vulnerable. Silence follows, thick with disbelief. The man who once never bowed is bearing his sue. Before them all. Amara rises slowly, clutching her bandaged arm. Her heart pounds, her legs weak, but she meets his gaze with a quiet steadiness. "I don't want your empire, Mr. Veyron," she says softly. "I don't need your wealth. All I ever wanted was dignity, for you to see me, not as a servant, but as a person." Her words fall like gentle thunder. Staff murmur agreement, nods rippling through the crowd. For years they have been invisible. Now her voice gives them all weight. Damien lowers his head, his eyes closing briefly as if absorbing the blow. When he raises them again, his voice carries something new, resolve. "Then from this day on, you will never be invisible here again. None of you will." The butler, stiff with years of obedience, steps forward hesitantly. "Sir, do you mean—" "I mean," Damien interrupts, his voice firm now, "that this house will no longer run on fear. Respect will be given. Voices will be heard. And that begins with me." For a moment, the silence is absolute. Then, softly at first, applause begins. The cook, the gardener, the maids, one by one, their hands meeting until the room hums with the sound. It is not loud, not wild, but steady, a rhythm of belief and release. And in the center, Amara's eyes glisten. She has not just survived humiliation, she has reshaped the ground she walks on. Later, when the crowd disperses, Damien finds her alone in the garden. The evening sun paints her skin in soft gold, her curls catching the light. She looks small in her simple uniform, but to him, she has never appeared greater. He approaches slowly, no longer striding like a conqueror, but careful, uncertain. "Amara." She turns, her expression unreadable. "I meant what I said," he murmurs. "I can't undo what I've done, but I can choose who I am from now on, and I want to be someone you don't have to fear." Her lips part, her eyes searching. His. And if you can't? He breathes deeply, the weight of honesty pressing every word. Then I don't deserve the chance you gave me. Silence stretches between them, heavy and fragile. Then Amara nods once, slowly. Change isn't words, Damien. It's what you do after everyone stops watching. Her voice is soft, but it carries more power than any boardroom speech he's ever given. And Damien knows her forgiveness was a gift, but her trust is something he must earn. That night he writes letters of apology to staff he once dismissed, cutting checks not as charity but as reparations. He restructures household rules, instituting protections, benefits, time off. Small gestures in the vast empire of his wealth, but to those who serve, it is the beginning of something profound. For Damien, it is not penance, it is rebuilding. For Amara, it is the first time her voice has changed more than one life. It has changed an entire world. The house is quiet now, not with the silence of fear, but with the peace of stillness after a storm. The chandeliers glow softly, not demanding attention, and the marble floors no longer echo with angry footsteps. The mansion breathes differently, lighter, freer. Amara walks through its halls with steady steps, her bandaged shoulder healed enough to carry trays again. But this time, her head is not bowed. When she passes staff, they greet her with warmth instead of pity. She is no longer the girl who embarrassed herself. She is the maid who stood up, who saved, who changed everything. And Damien Veyron, once a man of ice, watches her from the study balcony, his heart both heavy and full. One evening, he finds her outside, tending to the roses by the garden fountain. The night air is cool, scented with blossoms. She hums quietly to herself, a tune soft and aching, a fragment of her mother's lullabies. Damien approaches, his footsteps hesitant. "You sing beautifully." Amara startles, then lowers her gaze. "It's nothing, sir." "Don't call it nothing," he says gently. He pauses, searching for words. "I used to fill this place with noise, gala music, speeches, the sound of my own voice. But it was empty. What you just did, that was real." Her eyes flick to his, uncertain, then soften. "And what do you want it to be now? This house?" He exhales slowly, his shoulders dropping. "A home, not a fortress, not a prison. A place where people can breathe." His voice breaks as he adds, "The way you gave me breath when I was choking on my own pride." Amara studies him in silence, then nods once. That's a start. The days unfold with quiet transformations. Damien eats meals in the same room as his staff, awkward at first but determined. He listens when they speak. He learns their names, their families, their stories. When the gardener mentions his daughter's school fees, Damien quietly arranges them to be covered. When the cook's mother falls ill, Damien provides care without asking for gratitude. These are not grand gestures meant to be seen, they are deliberate acts of becoming. And through it all, his eyes always find Amara, as though she is the anchor reminding him who he must be. But Amara is not unchanged. She no longer folds inward under his gaze. She asks for fair schedules, insists on breaks for the younger maids, raises her voice when dignity is at stake. The girl who once whispered prayers in secret now speaks them into the air of the house itself, and the walls seem to hold them. One afternoon, she lingers by the window overlooking the city. Damien joins her, silent for a long moment. Finally, he says, "You've given me more than my life. You've given me a chance to live it differently." Her lips curve faintly, a smile both tender and cautious. "And what will you do with that chance, Mr. Veyron?" He turns to her, his blue eyes no longer cold, but vulnerable. "I'll spend it making sure no one in my life ever feels as unseen as I once made you feel." Amara studies him, her heart softening despite the scars of his past cruelty. She sees the truth in his eyes, not perfection, not promises of fairy tales, but the fragile honesty of a man learning to be human. The final evening arrives quiet and simple. No chandeliers blazing, no orchestra swelling. Just the balcony overlooking the gardens, where twilight bleeds into night. Damien stands beside Amara, not too close, not demanding, just present. The city hums in the distance, alive and restless. But here, The air is still. "Thank you," he says, his voice low but certain. "Not for saving my life. For saving me." Amara turns her face toward him, her expression unreadable for a moment, then soft, steady, whole. "You saved yourself, Damien. I just reminded you that you were worth saving." The words settle between them, heavier than gold, lighter than air. For the first time, Damien Veron does not feel like a billionaire, or a master, or a man defined by walls of marble. He feels like a person. And for the first time, Amara Lewis does not feel like a shadow. She feels seen. The story closes not with spectacle, but with stillness. Two figures standing side by side on a balcony at dusk. The maid who refused to bow to fear. The billionaire who learned to kneel to truth. The world will remember headlines and scandals, but within these walls, what remains is something quieter, stronger, and more enduring: respect, dignity, and the fragile beginning of redemption.